while riding on CT Washington trains or while waiting at bus stops or train drivers, stated to report suspicious behavior, inactivity, or traffic disturbances, and any other crimes that safety department.
Yeah, it would suck if like our first fans were haters.
Oh, let's not talk like that. Anyway, hello everyone, and welcome to Pleasant Evenings Book Club. As always, this is Hannah, and I am joined by Roberto and Corbin. You guys want to say hi?
Hello, this is Roberto.
Hi, this is Corbin.
All right. Today we are doing a selection of short stories, three total, from Junji Ito, the famed horror manga artist. We'll be doing uh, in order here. Wait, which was the first one?
Nigen Itsu. Human Chair.
Gotcha. So it's Human Chair first, and then we'll also be getting into Fashion Model and Long Dream. So, yeah, without further ado, I will hand it off to Corbin, I believe, who will be discussing Human Chair.
Wait. Let's chat a little bit. What's your prior experience with Junji Ito? I know he's like a famous guy.
I had read one of them. I'd read the Enigma of Amigara Fault. That one I remember, it was like a creepypasta when I was...
But I guess like you didn't like associate that with Junji Ito until like a while later.
Yeah, it was like this disembodied, I guess, story on the internet. Well, it was like a copy pasta, like or a creepy pasta rather, which
Yeah.
I guess for anybody that doesn't know, it was like this genre of like weird copy pasted horror story that existed in like 2000 what like 7 2008 on the internet. It was very popular. I think there was even a website. That's where things like the Lavender Town Syndrome story from Pokemon.
Oh, classic.
Yeah,
We got
yeah.
to do a creepypasta episode.
Oh, yeah, yeah. That would be a fun, sort of like a anthropological folktale kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now it's like history.
Kind of similar. I would say that this is my first explicit experience with Junji Ito.
Oh, any did you have any like encounters with his celebrity or his status in the manga world?
It's hard to say. I mean, I've probably read some stuff influenced by him too.
Mm-hmm.
Probably Tokyo Ghoul would be the closest one.
Oh, that's got some Junji Ito. I would read anything if you tell me there's Junji Ito influence.
The vibe was pretty similar too.
Oh, like the Doom.
Yeah, the Doom and some of the body disfiguration and horror involved.
I love a good body disfiguration.
Oh, don't we?
It was gory too. Devilman Crybaby is another example of that.
Oh, that show's really good. That's another one where like the emotion of it snuck up on me. The reveal one's just like the bad guy, like with the. Oh, I don't want to spoil it, but like at the end where you realize it's like the devil's like backstory, kind of.
Lucifer was cool. All the demons were just crazy and Atlas world looking.
Yeah, I haven't gone back to see any of the older Devilman OVAs.
I haven't either.
Is that on YouTube?
I'm sure it is.
Holy shit! Yeah, the 1987 OVA is on YouTube, like the whole thing.
I don't know. I consider all those things to be Ito adjacent.
Yeah, especially like there was an upsurge like in the 70s. Like Devilman is based on a late 70s, early 80s manga, and like Ito's like that was like a big upsurge in like horror manga. Like I think Junji Ito like will like reference Hideshi Hino and whoever wrote like I'll call it the drifting classroom or the floating classroom. But yeah, I would say that he's definitely the biggest name in Japanese horror today.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me.
Okay.
Yeah, for me, I guess I was a little bit more of a Ito head before. I remember as a kid, like freeloading some of his comics on my phone and sneaking off to read it when my parents made me go to church, and just feeling very cool because I was reading Uzumaki instead of scripture. But it would always like grab me about those stories was, I know this is not very intellectual, just like the way he drew them. Like he'll often like build to these like big panels, and I would always, like, going into any story, be very impressed with the way he's able to escalate an idea, and the way he would just show me something I'd never seen before.
Right, yeah, there's no like shortage of like original ideas in these short stories. Like everything is something, I mean, as we're about to find out, something that I don't know, I feel like a lot of like you might say, like, I guess like Western horror just follows this formula, you know, like the same kind of things every time. But these stories are all very weird, you know?
Yeah.
Right.
Like, the way people joke about Junji Ito is that if you, like, see any video of him talking, he's, like, the most normal guy. He's, like, soft-spoken and normal.
They say, like, they say MC Ride from Death Grips is, like, really quiet in person. Sorry, it's unrelated.
Yeah, there's I remember like a Pitchfork interview with him where he was like a little kid, like, where the interview was like, "What you got there?" I was like, "Just a toy."
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
It's that kind of vibe.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, if you look at his books, he'll write sometimes like what gave him the idea, or just sort of like a little bit reflecting on the story that he wrote. It's not for any of the stories we've read. I just remember one where he was like, I was looking through a book about insects, and I saw how insects tend to breathe through their skin, or not their skin, like through holes in their carapace, and that got me thinking, what, what if there were holes? And then, like, he'll just take any little bit of data and extrapolate. What if, what if that was some kind of monster? Or what if that got you somehow?
Sorry, there was another one where he was looking in a mirror and he thought his tongue looked like a slug, and that was an inspiration for another one. There's these crazy observations of rather mundane things.
You know when in JoJo's, when, what's his name, Kishiba Rohan?
Yeah.
When he's introduced and he's like, what makes a good manga writer is like an interest in reality, and he's like, this spider, what does it taste like? And he puts a spider in his mouth.
Right, yeah. Yeah, I recall that.
Like, that's good advice though. Like, take interest in the world around you, especially if you're someone who's supposed to be drawing things.
Right.
And Junji Ito has that where, yeah, he's like looking at his tongue. He stuck out his tongue, and then he kept his tongue out and just started thinking.
As one will.
As one will.
As one will. I guess we're good to proceed to summarize Human Chair.
Yeah, let her rip.
Cool. So, I guess I should mention first and foremost that this is an adaptation from a short story from a short story writer. What was his name? Ranpo?
I'm remembering. I'm thinking right now. I know it. I'm just remembering right now. Edogawa Ranpo. I just remembered.
Which I believe is a accented writer name reference to Edgar Allen Poe.
Oh, I see it. That's fun.
Yeah, there's a lot of cool bits about this tale. So, decided to adapt this into a manga, and I thought it was pretty entertaining. So it opens in present day, where we're introduced to this lady who is apparently window shopping and stops into a furniture store. Now she goes in and talks to the proprietor of this store about getting a new chair to help rectify her back pain. And, the chair store owner, replies, "Oh, yes, chairs are very important. They can even change the life of the owner." And then he presents her with such a chair, and he says, "Oh, this chair really changed the life of a previous owner." And he has a story about it. And that's when we're led into Taisho era Japan, and we're introduced to the author Togawa Yoshiko. And she's a pretty big deal. Besides being a pretty famous writer, she's also the wife of a government officer, I think of foreign affairs, if I recall correctly.
Big shot.
Yeah. She's such a big shot that she receives manuscripts, letters, one of which is entitled Human Chair. It details this ugly, deformed carpenter who engineers shelters himself into the chairs that he makes. And one such chair shares a history of being bought at a market by a government officer, and that's when she starts to make personal connections. And at this point, she is horrified. Sometime later, it's revealed in another manuscript, oh, this was just a made-up story. Apparently, the writer of the manuscript was a aspiring writer like herself.
I forgot all the layers of storytelling that was in the story.
Right.
Yeah, right?
I think it ended up being my favorite of the three.
Made-up manuscript that shares the title of what we're reading.
Oh, yeah, like The King in Yellow.
That's honestly true. That does give that thing like a special power. Like, it makes you think about the effect that reading has on you. So especially for horror.
Right.
The story doesn't end there. It gets weirder. We're in the middle of the night. She hears the chair moving around at night. So she wakes up her husband to check it out. He thinks it's a break-in, and they ultimately walk into the study where the chair is at. And she's convinced that there's a person inside the chair. So the husband beats the heck out of this chair, right? Kind of funny. It was a point of comic relief, I thought. But she's struggling with writing at this point, but receives a third and final manuscript saying, "Oh, that really, really hurt me when you had your government officer husband beat me." And I guess that's when she realized too little too late that this carpenter was real and these events were actually happening to her. And she later discovers that her husband was stabbed by the carpenter who has been living inside this chair. The police are called and believe her, and they open up the chair to see this. The artwork for this was pretty cool. Was this human indentation? Looked cozy enough. It didn't look super livable, but
the details in the illustration, because when you write the story, you can just say that it happened, but when you draw it, you have to actually show it. And the details, like, you can see that. I'm looking at it now. Like, you can see like the cans of food and the jug of water on the side.
Yeah, it did make me wonder how did he move around in there though. I don't know, I guess it was spacious enough.
It makes me makes you think about like being that person in there, like the way to be so carefully moved, because you can't like struggle too much or you'd be making a lot of noise.
Ugh.
Right.
Spooky.
Yeah. A quiet person is sometimes, in certain contexts, like if they're inside your chair, a scary person.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
I guess what's spooky about it is that it's not even super natural in its horror. This is is what other people can do to each other.
It's a little crazy, but it is plausible. Anyway, sorry, yeah, so they found like the indentation where the guy was, right? And then
Right. And they never caught him, and ultimately this author, what was her name again? Togawa, ultimately disappear into history. And it's when this story ends and the present day continues, our first character, our first writer in the present day is asking, oh, is this the chair that the man was hiding in? And the store owner says, no, this is a different chair. And he opens it up, and we see the bodies of Togawa and the carpenter ultimately having found each other after the events of Human Chair, and I guess falling in love if we were to take the story at face value.
Mhm.
And he reveals, oh, I'm a descendant of these two, and I promise you I will craft you a life-changing chair. And that's when our present day writer really freaks out. I think her name was Hayama. She really freaks out. It's like, no chair is okay. I'm going now. I'm leaving. Bye. Which leads us to her apartment. Her ultimately still having back pain, struggling writing, and there's a knock on her door, and it's delivery people dropping off a chair that she had apparently ordered. Awfully resembles the life-changing chair.
When this one comes in, it's not as subtle. You see that,
Right.
you see that the bulge on the back of the chair.
Yeah, it's. I think it's fairly obvious what's going on.
Right. What are you gonna
Yeah.
do? What do you call the police and say somebody's in my chair? Like, yes.
Yeah, in this case, you go, yeah, there's obviously someone in that chair. Look,
Look at that bulge. It's human indented.
They do a good job at making the chair look fleshy from the outside too. The way that it's like shaped and that, the way that it like the upholstery is with this like bloated looking like sections of leather, I guess.
Yeah, I agree. I really like seeing the facial face indentation structures within the chair. Yeah,
There's a big S&M thing going on here, obviously. I don't know like how to interpret it really, but there's obviously an S&M.
oh yeah, just like the bondage and all that. It's funny you said leather because I did it say it was leather? I don't know what. I guess I imagined it like more like velvety, but I guess it doesn't look like velvet. No, that looked like cracked leather.
Yeah, it's the way it shines, or like seems to shine. I guess I don't see it shining in any of these. I just envisioned it as like glossy and like fleshy,
That's funny. Yeah, I was going through it. I pictured like velvety or like some kind of cloth and like cushions.
Mm.
But there is one close up where the details make it look more leathery. Like I'm looking now. The one where you see the face come out, it does. You see these cracks that I guess you wouldn't see in fabric.
Yeah, I see that image.
But I do like it being leather too. From like if you think about it too, like I'm not getting on my vegetarian bullshit, but like leather is skin.
I think that's why I prefer it be leather.
I like that interpretation.
There's just like too much continuity to give up.
Yeah, it serves like a couple different. I mean, I think it like furthers the S&M aspect, but I think it also furthers like the flesh and bone aspect. Sort of fleshy quality to the chair because of its leather leather composure. So there's like, I think, two things going on there, but kind of connected.
I know we talked about it before. I'm not sure if I kept it in the episode when we were talking about that Throbbing Gristle song, Persuasion, on 20 Jazz Funk Rates.
Oh, yeah.
There is something inherently creepy about intimacy, especially if it's unwanted, and like the way it might like try to creep into crossing past the wanted unwanted barrier without your knowledge.
Yeah, definitely.
And like when you think about like how a chair, you do have a relationship with a chair if there's one you really like you sink into it, you have so much contact with it, it's the perfect thing for solitude and comfort.
Right.
And like remembering now that I'm thinking it's leather, like even outside of like if there was a person, like the idea of like skin like enveloping you for this, there's a grotesquerie about it.
You know, I think we're like obviously supposed to identify with the woman, you know, in this, who has to deal with this person in her chair or whatever, or might have to, or what have you. But I think we're also supposed to like think a little bit about what it would be like to be in the chair ourselves and feel that claustrophobia, which is why I think he bothers to draw it, you know? It's interesting, like, not to like get too off topic, but it's interesting how they show the little like cans of beans and stuff, you know, in there as well. But so there's like that horror too of like, well, what would it be like to be in this chair, you know? And then also, what would it be like to be some kind of freak who wants to be in the chair, you know? That's also, so I think there's like, you know, there's like a couple different levels of like, you know, horrifying experiences to empathize with, I think, in this story.
I'm not sure. I don't remember how much of it is in the comic, but it like if you read the original story, which follows the beats like pretty similarly. I can't like off the top of my head think of any real differences. But like in the story, like there's like this detail that like really like stuck with me, which is because like part of the bit with the story is that the chair with the guy in it is actually very comfortable. Like she's a writer and the chair helps her write better, and she just feels very at home in it.
Oof.
In the story, there's this detail where he talks about how he like kind of shifts his legs and stuff to give her the like to react to her like the way she shifts her weight,
which is all these other, I think, BDSM connotations too, probably. Like there's like a lot of that going on in the story, I think, now that we talk about that.
Yeah, but like with BDSM, I guess I'm unfamiliar. I don't usually think of that much closeness. Usually I think of BDSM as like this like psychic relationship.
Well, yeah, so I think that like I think that the person in this chair is like in this way like sort of like this unwanted submissive, right?
Yeah.
Like adapting their body in like every possible way to like, you know, accommodate this other person without their consent. It's really, you know, I mean, it's kind of what we were just talking about. It's really fucked up, which is why I think the claustrophobia of the chair and like the being stuck in it is also important. You know what I mean? Like to me, it's just like, oh yeah, this seems kinky. Like just for some, without it having to be like,
oh yeah, no, for sure, this guy's a pervert.
Yeah, without having anything having to be said directly. Like it's kinky as hell. But you know, like why would a person want to be in the chair? Is I guess what. You know, when you talk about like the way that this person adapts themselves to be the perfect chair, it's like, I think that's the implication, you know, is this like sort of like non-consensual like submission or bondage within the chair.
Yeah, that's true. It is definitely like in terms of a service, and like I didn't ask for this type of servitude.
Yeah, because this person is serving her in a way that's very passive and very, you know, at least from, I mean, she doesn't even know he exists, you know, or at least not ideally.
Yeah, I guess like the scary thing, the scary part, everything's the scary thing about, he writes her those letters to let her know little by little, and eventually he wins her over, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, that's the craziest part for me, is that she apparently falls for him and decides to join him in a chair.
Yeah, that's where it all confuses me too. I guess the lesson is maybe just supposed to be, hey, to each their own. whatever gets you off.
Although actually that is a big difference. In the original story, like that ending isn't there.
Oh, huh.
Like in the original story, it ends with just like her receiving the confessions. But in the Junji Ito tradition of like what's the next escalation, it'd be like how much closer could they get?
Yeah.
It makes me wonder though, like if they're both a chair, then who's sitting on the chair?
Yeah, and what is that? What do they gain? I don't know. Couple looking for third.
Yeah, you ask it to a Craigslist, they say, oh, there'll be key under the rug, just come over, and then you just see a chair.
There's a note card that just says have a seat.
Have a seat.
You sit down to wait, and you wait for 2 hours, and you get the feeling that you've been had, and you leave. But in actuality, everything happened.
You leave, and like the seat's a little wet or something.
Right. You get a little frustrated that you've been stood up, and that's essentially the.
Yeah, there's clearly like at that point, it's just a world between them. Like no one's intruding on their special world in this.
Right.
I think a good touch. I'm looking at the comic right now. Is that the beans get replaced by like a pretty nice like pottery set?
The what?
Like if you look at the final panels, like it's not beans on the side of the chair. Like it's like a.
Oh yeah.
Like it's.
They had a feminine touch.
Some decorations. Yeah, that's. You get a woman to move into your chair, and suddenly, just things are just a little nicer.
Right, yeah. I got a hairbrush in the chair now.
Like, there's a grotesquerie there. Like, I want to think of it like as a happy ending, if not for just the sheer invasiveness of how the man came into her life.
Yeah, I think it's a really weird love story, probably. Maybe not the final ending. Maybe not the chair showing up at this new lady's doorstep.
That's the classic, and that ending is the classic, like, chainmail kind of ending, where, like, now it's your turn, like, and this could happen to you. There's always people sending each other these chairs.
Right.
With the implication that even if you don't want it, even if you suspect there's someone in there, eventually you might end up succumbing to the allure of chairdom.
Yeah, the temptation of the chairman. Yeah.
So I've thought about this story before. I don't know if I brought it up on pod or just in conversation. When I think about how your phone and your apps strip away your privacy for the sake of convenience. And it's like little things like remembering your passwords for you. Like, don't worry about your passwords, I got them. And to like one time I was gonna put like GPS directions to my house, and before I even hit anything, it just said home, and I'd never set that address as home. It knows where I am all the time. It said, "Oh, there's your house, right? Here you go. Here's this for you."
Right.
And my first thought was like, "Why do you know this?" My second thought was, "How convenient. Let me just click on this and go home."
Right.
This ending, maybe more gratuitous than the original, like, speaks to definitely a more relevant modern horror that we will accept this comfort and convenience.
Yeah.
Like, it is possible for things to intimate themselves into your life like this.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think I see it now with like the like the location recognition on your phone in the first place, and like the face recognition, like all that stuff, which I still don't have the face recognition on, but I see it as like in some ways unavoidable eventually.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we've hit the human chair.
Yeah. Corby, you picked this one out, like, it's like we each we each picked one of the stories to get this Junji Ito special episode out. Why'd you pick what drew you to the story?
So what drew me to this specific story was that there's a Japanese rock band of the same name, called Nigen Itsu. So seeing that there was this story, this adaptation of it, I decided to pick it up and see where it would take us.
Yeah, maybe they human chaired you a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, well, so I figured,
Yeah,
if they're making a reference to the story, the manga has to be
It's like
decent,
how cats
right?
have that parasite that makes you like them.
the toxoplasmosis.
Yep.
I'll believe it. There's no need though. It's overkill.
Right, I already like
I'm
them.
allergic to them, and I still love
Yeah.
them.
I say with my brain like full to the brim with toxoplasmosis.
I've always loved the cat.
Yeah, I've always loved cats. Right, yeah, totally normal thing for a human to say.
There's a Junji Ito book actually. He just like wrote a bunch of stories inspired by his cat.
Oh, nice.
I've been waiting to get that because I'm guessing that one's cute.
Right.
Even like a tiger, part of me is like, I'd rather get eaten by a tiger than by wolves.
Why?
Just because it's cute. Any other human chair stuff or?
So I guess maybe just this one closing question. I guess I had concerns as it was originally a short story. Didn't start out as a manga. Did you all feel that in comparison, the artwork was weaker as a result of that, or?
No, it was actually my favorite of the three. I just found the story really interesting.
Yeah, I think like the on the strength of the story, it's like it's so strong and so disturbing that it's all good. Like he does get to flex, and honestly, my least favorite parts might be where like the head is kind of popping out or that bulge at the end. When he tries to like force more of the like I gotta draw something to really wow them. It does like that's like where it lands these like most flat to me. But as far as just like the telling of the story through paneling, character expressions, and like the way they draw like these empty corridors or the texture of the chair, like he still gets to like really express his art. If anything, the art could have been toned down a little bit. I don't know. How'd you feel about that bulge in the last panel or when the face comes out? Like those were really like my main things against it.
I didn't really mind that. I don't know. I thought it just sort of made the concept more tangible,
It's got to read.
Without some of that, there's like this whole like, well, there's a guy in the chair, but where's the scary come from? Like he could just, I mean,
it is an efficient way to get it like within a panel.
Right. I guess my thing is there could be like a guy in my closet at any given day, like at any given time.
Whereas the drawings would look the same no matter what.
Yeah, but if every so often he doesn't creep out of that closet, then there's not really like any artistic tension,
That's true. Like at least in terms of just communicating the idea, like clarity is much more valuable than, whatever like believability or restraint.
Right. Yeah, because it just well,
that's why I was also curious, like because the story you get to just hear it from the guy's perspective, so he just talks about weight and breath and like this stuff, but like what can you see is a whole other thing.
Yeah, I think you just need some of that for this story just inherently.
Yeah, so I guess it was the adapting it for the medium, like it might have just been like the only path through.
Right.
I do like the shot where the arm, like it's like a 3/4 shot of just the chair, and like the armrest of the chair, like you can see how it's conceivably like the hand, like the arms, like a person arm, and you can see a face shape there. Like I do, like it actually does kind of hit there, like pretty.
It's arguably better. Ooh, yeah. I do like the imagery though. Still.
Mm-hmm. He is still like a masterclass, like top of the game.
He got respect restraint as well.
Yeah, he might have actually. Yeah, he did thread the needle. Like, it's a story that works. Like, if you read the story, it does get under your skin. It does get into your chair.
All right.
But yeah, that was a good point to touch on the art. Yeah, you want to move on to fashion model?
Yeah.
Naturally.
Okay. So, fashion model follows the story of a young gentleman. I think his name is Iwasaki. He wakes up one morning feeling rather unlucky, and goes about his day. At one point, he hits his head pretty hard. That's always very funny. So he finds himself, I believe, in a coffee shop looking through fashion magazines. And in that magazine, one of the ones there, he finds this model she's like she's very jarring to look at. It's hard to like describe her without being potentially mean to someone. I don't know. Like
It's a problem like describing any woman is.
Yeah, because she has features. Like she has a collection of features that a woman could hypothetically have, and that's what's so like, so tricky about it. But so he's pretty taken aback by this woman though. Like I can't believe she's a model, etc., etc. So he goes about his day from here, and he can't get this lady out of his mind. Like she on the streams, and so on. We find out a little bit more about him, and it turns out he works on like I don't know, he's like maybe a film student or something, I think. But him and his friends do like like movies or whatever. They make films, So they're looking, I think, for for some women to star in whatever film they're working on. I think they need 2 of them. And at this point, this ugly model, I guess, has essentially left his mind entirely for the most part. It's taken a minute, but it's faded.
It take a while, yeah. It really like stuck.
But then
that was interesting about the structure. But yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Oh yeah, but then out of nowhere, he she's turns out she's auditioned, and they pull her picture out of a stack, so he has a little freak out about it, but they decide, I guess, for whatever reason, to like ultimately go with her, like to ultimately use her as the the actress or whatever. So they go on what amounts to like a classic like horror story road trip to the woods to film, like art student bullshit. And while they're on the way there, there's some I guess like girl gossiping occurring in the car that makes this model laugh, her and the other woman. And she laughs, and it's revealed that she has like these razor sharp teeth, So, but at this point, it's been plausible that she might be just like a regular woman who's very ugly. But the razor sharp teeth seem to, right.
Like the way they're drawn too.
Yeah. And so the way that so they all arrive out in the woods or what have you, and they're all doing like like pretentious artsy shit, like they're sitting in chairs
they're just
looking at scripts,
artsy shit, like sitting in chairs.
No, they're gesturing at trees, you know what I mean, they're arranging cameras, So it becomes pretty clear that the taller model has been kind of like eyeing our main character here, and he's a little unnerved by that. So he goes for a walk. At which point she follows him, and he kind of I don't know, like rejects her by running away, right? Which she doesn't do much for herself because she then chases him.
And the way she like her body's like leaned forward like a raptor in Jurassic Park.
Yeah. She seems to just glide. Like the implication seems to be that she glides across the ground like some sort of like It's like the Naruto run. It's faster like that.
But she's holding up her dress.
If Naruto had worn a dress, he would have done it this way too.
That's true.
Anyway, so he gets back to the, it's the camp, and he's like, yo, we got to get out of here. This lady's insane. But they decide, whatever. I guess not. But at this point, everything's awkward. Like this chick is pissed. Probably a monster. They keep doing their filming or whatever. The prettier girl is also getting praised a lot by the cameraman and the director, what have you. The ugly one is like, hey, are you going to film me at all? And they're like, we'll get around to it. So some time passes, and they find out that the two girls have wandered off, and seems like the ugly one has ripped the littler one to shreds. The bigger one has destroyed the littler one, and eaten them a bit. In fact,
the bigger one.
Yeah, the bigger one has eaten the littler one. Yeah.
So the main difference between them is just.
It's just the size. Yeah, it's just the size. Yeah, no, I'm trying to avoid saying the uglier one because it just seems crass, but I don't know, the monstrous one, the horrifying, the fashion model.
The fashion
anyway,
model one.
Right, yeah, right. So they go into the woods, and they find just all this horrific shit, and then she's out there looking like. Suddenly you're like, there's no way this lady was ever passable for a regular woman, because she's looking insane. She's looking insane,
or human maybe even.
Yeah. She looks like a reptilian essentially. She's looking bad. So she pretty much kills everyone except the main character, and she's like, finally, we're all alone. It's just the two of us at last. Now we can, I don't know.
What's her? Yeah.
Have praying mantis sex that ends in your death is what I'm assuming, and that's where it ends. That's where it ends.
Praying mantis seems like the intersection between I don't know, sex and violence.
Yeah, because she's totally gonna eat him, but she's totally gonna fuck him too. You know what I mean? Both things are about to happen. So.
Right, the special attention she was giving him.
One thing I maybe did a bad job, it's sort of implied that in some way this has all been psychically willed to happen by her in some weird way.
Oh,
as though from
I was going to touch on that.
Yeah, as though from the very beginning, the fact that he finds her picture and it haunts him for weeks, and then she just so happens to get that role. It all feels it all feels sort of supernaturally predetermined, but
yeah, there's something weird about the way that the King in Yellow book just shows up randomly sometimes in those stories.
Right, as though it's there just to make things worse. Yeah.
But I definitely was thought of that. If you just read it through, it's oh, there's a scary woman, and then she gets him. But when he in that story, it sits with you. That setup is strange, because then he finds her in the magazine, then he goes back and the store's we don't have that magazine anymore, and he can't find. So then he forgets. There's something weirdly mysterious about it, and then she shows up, and even though she's a pro, she's at this student film. Casting, and.
Right.
She takes special interest in him, who was the one who got spooked by her picture before.
Right. In fact, a lot of the other guys, other than being oh, haha, she's kind of ugly, don't seem to find her appearance that rattling, it should be noted. Nobody really seems as phased as the narrator by her appearance, beyond just being oh, haha, she kind of looks ugly, doesn't she? So that's interesting too. Well, there's a lot of framing in the first half of it to just make you believe that she's normal and just kind of ugly,
Yeah, then it goes into I was a little bit disappointed by how much of a traditional monster she was. But either way, all of that setup does just make you think about things in a different way anyways, in this like broader, more cosmic way.
Right.
Yeah, but I did appreciate like part of the tension was like kind of like this politeness game of like how ugly am I allowed to admit that she is, or am I allowed to acknowledge, or like how much of this is am I bringing to this?
Right.
I don't know if this is immediately. I don't know if this is best brought up later, but Junji Ito talking about this story, he did say that like he did say something like that, like looking back, he wished he had drawn her less ugly.
Like she is like just ugly enough in the story, I think, where you like know, you know? Like it's very
Uh,
close though. Wherever that line is, he got quite close to it, you know?
yeah, it wasn't a terrible miss.
Right.
And it's interesting that her like motivations, like whatever she like communicates, isn't just like monster, I want to eat you. Like she's mad that she's not getting any scenes. Like she's like hungry for attention or something. Like she's someone who like demands to be looked at and acknowledged.
Yeah, like her motives seem pretty typical for like an actress, you know, in that age range, you know? Like I don't know, there's a guy she wants, and then she wants to be on camera as much as possible. You know what? I don't know. Like she personality wise, she like laughs at gossip with the other girl in the car. You know what I mean? Like she
Yeah.
seems like normal.
Like she might have an apartment to go home to after all
Yeah,
this.
that's what I mean. Like that's why the pictures of them, like, are this, like, I guess the panels of them just doing like sort of hipster camera people shit out in nature are like, I think, really important, is because they sort of like show her just sitting there. You know, like she's in the chair,
Yeah.
like, you know, like maybe she's got a drink, you know, like it's just normal people shit, you know.
And her annoyance of like, when are you gonna do my scenes? Like, makes sense. She went all the way out there. Like, that's a day for her. And the guys are being kind of rude and like frat boyish. Like, there's a part of me like I definitely like kind of felt for her at times because of how like teasing they were.
Right. Yeah, and I think it like you know, he's the only one who treats her as like freakishly ugly. You know, the rest of them just sort of don't even see her as real. You know, they're just like, oh, that's just the ugly.
A woman.
Yeah, it's just the ugly one. Eh.
But they like tease her like, oh, you like her, right? Hey, hey, hey.
Right. Yeah, they do that.
Until she like goes like mask off, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, but before the whole mask off, brutal eating and murdering, it seemed as though it was almost a critique or a navigation of whatever societal beauty standards exist within Japan. Yeah.
I don't know that it isn't.
Yeah, that like this.
I don't. Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't know that the ending disqualifies it from continuing to be that.
Like, who knows? Maybe it's like a bit of comeuppance. Like, if they were nicer, she wouldn't have gone that way.
Yeah, I get the sense that she wouldn't have, honestly.
I mean, she got enough attention or kindness from the magazine publishers, assumably.
Right.
Yeah, that's true. There was a photographer there.
I was gonna say, I guess it just depends on like whether or not we're to believe that like she did, you know, she wanted to be seen by the main character in order to like enter his life and eat him or whatever, or whether or not she was just like a normal person, relatively, who you know, has aspirations of being a model, but also like totally eats anyone who wrongs her.
Yeah. I think that definitely contributes to the horror and to just the story is the ambiguity. Like, I think like any good horror story is like has that aspect of like where did the main character fuck up?
Right.
Like when it has that aspect of like, oh, if it had gone this way, maybe. Like, I know it's not strictly horror, but like the trial, for example, you're not even sure like what Joseph Ka did wrong, but he did something wrong. And like as he goes, like he does like make choices that presumably, maybe, possibly are the thing that like seal his fate.
I thought you were talking about the Tim Heidecker, the trial, and I was like, oh, what?
Oh, that's the. I don't know how to supplanted it as being the definitive trial.
Right, yeah.
No, yeah, I'm sure our thousands of listeners were thinking, "Oh, the OJ trial, right?"
right.
I guess Frankenstein is also immediately comparable.
Like if Dr. Frankenstein had been different.
Yes. And I immediately judged his creation based on looks alone.
Yeah, it's funny. Junji Ito actually has done a Frankenstein adaptation.
It's going to be part of the Frankenstein month.
There you go.
Yeah, that could be part of Frankenstein month.
Yeah, should make a note of that. Drop a pin in that, as it were.
Frankenstein month.
You're hearing it here first, listeners. Frankenstein month.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
We'll be mailing out samples of frankincense to all of our loyal listeners.
Yeah, if you get in early.
Right. While supplies last.
Yeah, I'm very curious. Our last podcasts have gotten like 6 to 8 listeners each.
I love you guys.
I wonder if it's the same people.
If it is, I love you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, and I'd love to know more about you. Like, I know what it feels like when you finally sit down after a long day in your chair. Like, I know that, but what are you thinking?
How is your evening? Is it pleasant?
How? I don't know if I got this out, but like, this is going out to our loyal listeners, if there are any who are loyal, or if there are any listeners for that matter. Like, we got an email address. Doing my best to link it in the description. eveningspleasant@gmail.com. Reach out if you are a fan of Junji Ito. I'm so curious to hear anyone's opinions about Junji Ito.
Nice.
Yeah. You think I should stay in?
Yeah.
But yeah, our opinions on Junji Ito, like comparing this to Human Chair so far, like this is definitely like the main thing I think is like this is it being an original story also because of the context. This is a story where he is able to let loose. I know he said that he regretted making her as ugly as he made her, like he wished he would have made her prettier. But that speaks even more. Like this is a story where he really gets to let loose and like show off his style. As far as like his strengths of being able to come up with a grotesque image, like this is a great design for monster sounds wrong, right? This ambiguity about rudeness. Like this is a very difficult story because we're talking.
This is the ideal ugly woman.
The ideal ugly woman. Like she's like a woman, like especially I'm looking at her like fashion photos where she's got her hair done tight and she's not showing off her sharp teeth. Like you can see that in a haute couture maybe.
Right.
Like they're always going for like otherworldly kind of looks. Like you want a unique face will get you farther maybe than a conventionally attractive one.
Oh yeah, well I feel like the way androgyny is and like a lot of like modeling, like she's got some like sort of masculine features in terms of her like height and the shape of her face, which is not like out of the ballpark for what they do when they select models, you know what I mean? So
I'm getting like this is like very dangerous. Like I don't want to go into like
do you think she passes? No, I'm kidding.
You did say passes before, like as a like passes as a
I think there's probably some trans shit we could get into here. I don't know if we should, but
Mm.
I don't know if I was prepared to.
Uh,
As a trans, and I'm probably just expected to have more to say. So
yeah. Okay, I didn't want to like this is definitely a story that puts a lot of emphasis on like how women look, which is something that trans women like do have, right? Famously.
yeah, it's a big problem.
I'm gonna phrase it differently. I'm gonna phrase it like and you can decide like how much you want to get into it, of course, like no pressure. Um what drew you to this story?
I guess like as a trans woman, for me, this captures like the most caricatured and
Oh.
darkly surreal aspect of the otherness associated with being trans, like, and not being cisgender. Like this feeling that you're always not quite, when do they film your lines?
So on that, like maybe it was a good call to make her so obviously monstrous because like it gets less into the space of like micro focusing on these details.
Yeah, I guess if she looked prettier, it would be, I don't know. Then there'd probably have to be more commentary on the trans thing. It's getting way in the weeds. I think we've kind of covered fashion model. It sucks to be trans. It sucks
Yeah.
to be ugly. It sucks to be I don't know, a film hipster. I don't know. It sucks. What's no, the story was good. What's anybody got anything else on this before we move on?
I do wish he gave us a little bit more story.
It was like kind of just like some imagery and then waiting for the shoe to drop.
Oh yeah.
But with imagery like this,
It's not like there's nothing to talk about, you know what I mean? Like, the theme is in and of itself, like, kind of a whole discussion, so I don't know that it needs too much more plot, like, because it risks just beating its theme to death, I think.
that's true. Like if it like put anything into words, it would be a little
Right, on the nose.
like it would get old or something. Yeah.
Yeah,
I guess what I mean is one more ending panel of the main character getting eaten, or a little more.
Oh, yeah.
Just something to whet the appetite or like make you imagine kind of more like what her actual plans are, like now that she has him alone are.
Yes.
Dude, I knew it was eat and fuck. In some order.
Show me.
Like Junji Ito is good at coming up with like crazy concepts, like not just like crazy imagery, but ideas. There's one about like a bird woman. Like this guy's like a hiker and like he breaks his like leg hiking and it takes like I don't know, like a long time for them to find him. I might be remembering it wrong, but whatever. Like I'm just getting the gist across. And like this bird with like a woman's face kind of like shows up. She kind of made him trip too because like she distracted him. But then she shows up later, like and like feeds him like how a bird would feed him. Like mouth to mouth. Years later, like that bird woman comes again, and I'm butchering the story, but the gist of it is that that woman comes back, and it turns out that what he was eating was like himself. So this bird woman would in the future eat him, and then feed that meat to himself later. Like this high concept time travel thing is like by itself that idea like grabs you.
Right.
Like Junji Ito, like he could have come up with like some kind of situation. I know like not this, but like, now you'll take pictures of me for 100 years. Like, he could have taken it in any like kind of angle.
That's true.
Is that how you mean? Like kind of like what's the end game? Like an idea of like what suffering he's in for?
I wanna be shown it, like if it's some eating and fucking. Yeah, show me. I want to see that artwork, or or even if it was her being the main protagonist now, like just show me him with the camera.
There is a possibility that she is simply going like, okay, now that's out of the way. Now we can do what I wanted. Like, there's a possibility she just has a simpler idea of like how these shoots go. I think we had like any last words on it.
I think we've got everything I had.
All right, Long Dream. So I think the story starts with like a similar kind of like nested storytelling structure that Human Chair indulged in, with a woman who's like at a hospital. Like, she's just simply paranoid in the sense that she just feels like she's about to die all the time. Like, her mortality is just really getting to her, and she sees like this like shadowy figure like show up at her door and scare her. She thinks it's death. The doctors like try to talk to her and like talk her down. And later, when the doctors are talking alone, one of them wonders, "I wonder if he's out and about now." And he's like, "What are you talking about?" And he's like, "Well, long ago, I had this patient come by, who's who was having trouble with these dreams um that were just weirdly long. He would have dreams that were like lasted 2 or 3 days. And like each night is like several days, just messing with his productivity. But then like as things progress, take longer and longer. And you get and part of what's cool about the story is just the detail of like how one would react. So it talks about like the different dreams that he has, and also just the way that it gets in the way of like his ability to function. Like, I think the description, like whatever happened the day before feels like it was a year ago, because he had a year-long dream, like, in the space of a night. There's like so he just like gets like disconnected kind of from reality. There's a great sequence where he's describing the different dreams that he has about like 10 years being um like studying for a test, like classic kind of dream stuff, or I don't know, being in a war or something. And things like get really out there for this man who's having those long dreams, to the point that they're like taking 10 years, hundreds of years. Like, it just like keeps accelerating. They think that it's gonna get to the point where he has a dream that lasts an eternity, which, it's like dividing by zero, but like that's kind of where it's building to. The other thing that as these dreams get longer and longer, it seems to affect the man's physiology. He becomes like this kind of otherworldly guy. Like, I don't know, like he becomes like a living embodiment of the picture of Dorian Gray, but like stranger. Like, he doesn't just look like a zombie. He looks like a zombie with like a big head. So like what that woman might have seen was maybe this um dream monster. It built up to a climax where he had a dream, like, because he saw this woman who was afraid of dying. He had a dream that he was married to her for 100 years, and he confuses reality. And this is one of those dreams that I guess are very close to everyday life. He confuses those things, and he goes over to her in real life and is like, "Oh, my wife," and she's terrified of this hideous man. I guess the story is, yeah, it's cool that we picked this one for last. It's got the nested story structure um of Human Chair, and it's also got the tension of what if someone is ugly, that fashion model has.
True.
That's like one thing that happened. So like these are like two parallel things. Like, this woman's scared of death. Now she's really scared because she thinks basically the Grim Reaper is coming after her. As his dreams get longer and his transformations get crazier, he ends up looking like an alien before finally having, maybe at the point of having his eternity dream, he doesn't wake up so much as just turn to dust. The scientist, the doctor, grabs some of the dust and he sees some strange structures in the particles. It's not just skin cells, but some kind of crystals are forming. And we get a reveal that then the doctor decided to treat the woman by putting those crystals into her IV. Her feelings of fear of death are subsiding, I guess because she's having these long dreams. And his thinking is that, if your dreams can last up to the point of eternity, it's like a simulation of immortality. The doctor he's explaining this to, his fellow doctor's like, what the fuck? That's messed up. And ends with a panel of similar transformations happening to the young woman who was afraid of death. We expect the same thing's gonna happen to her. Yeah, I think that covers Long Dream. I think it was a really cool story. Especially when I got to read it. I love the little peeks into the dreams that guy has.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought this one had sort of maybe the most complete, I think, story structure of the three that we read, in terms of having an ending, having a full, an idea being fully expressed from beginning to end. Just because it has, it has an ending, right? It has with a twist, the story gets sort of, there's a sense of closure in it. It wraps itself up with a bow in so many words. But
yeah, that's I think a really great way to put the main difference, from a reader's perspective. Human Chair does have this ending. What's the ultimate conclusion? That's as far as you can take. As a Human Chair person is the person who's sitting
right.
joining the chair, but you don't get that in between bit. And Fashion Model, you don't, it cuts off right before you see what her intentions are. But this, you see the way it builds, as well as you take it all the way from a day long dream to eternity long dream.
Yeah, and you even get to see sort of, what might be behind that, whatever this structure is that's present, whatever the substance is that he finds. Because it sort of loops back around to the first character that we're introduced to, which is this woman who fears death, and then it solves her problem. The whole thing feels very, concise and self-contained. It doesn't need any more space than what it takes up. So
that's true. Yeah, it justifies this structure,
right,
of having this other woman.
Right, exactly.
Human Chair is a little weird with the chair coming back to the woman who's shopping for chairs.
Right. It seems a little far-fetched and surreal that then she would be the one to encounter this chair on top of that. It all works out very well. If that makes sense. It's all
it's a shock that's in the moment, but then you look back and you just wonder, well, how did he get her address?
Yeah, right. How did he know that she was a writer when she showed up to his shop? He was waiting for a writer to come along just to launch into this diatribe about living in chairs.
I assume she has a degree of pain as a writer.
Yeah, well, yeah. I guess that's to be implied. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the only explanation. If she was on her second.
I mean, if J.K. Rowling walked into my chair store, I'd definitely want to freak her out.
Yeah, if you had a chair store, you come up with some kind of fucked up chair just on the occasion that perhaps J.K. Rowling might show up.
All the best writers are using it. It's called a bear trap chair. It's essentially just a large bear trap, and you sit in it.
Oh my god, J.K. Rowling. I guess I dodged a bullet by not really getting into Harry Potter, so I didn't really get to feel the betrayal.
Right.
That maybe some people felt.
It was overrated.
Yeah, it's crazy how it happened too, because it's she went from Dumbledore's
very good
to trans people are evil in a week and a half. You know what I mean?
the speed of it was great. Like, this was crazy.
She wanted to the whole time.
Like I get, you know what? Dave Chappelle did feel kind of a betrayal. To
Oh
me.
yeah. Well, with him, it's like hypocritical. I mean, like I'll believe J.K. Rowling is stupid, but I will not believe Dave Chappelle is. You know, like that guy has some self awareness.
That's true. Like, like he was like on his way to to being like Mark Twain or Terry Southern. Like, he was just gonna be like known as one of the great American humorists. But yeah, Long Dream. It's kind of tough to know like what like drew me to me like I guess like this one is like such a direct like, here's the concept and just watch me execute it. Like, this one is like there is some great imagery, but like all of it is really just like the explanation. Like, what drew me to reading it was the concept. Like, what if your dreams got longer and longer?
And when I say like there's a lot of originality in these stories, that's what I mean. It's like it would take you know, like in terms of like American horror movies, that type of movie would never come out, you know, and if it did, it would be like they would talk about it, you know, because the concept is so novel. Like it's actually a new idea.
Yeah.
Like it's like, and it's so simple too. It's not difficult. It's pretty elegant, you know. It's just a simple like, oh, what if you just couldn't wake up from the dream and every time you dreamt it was longer? You know, I don't know where that is in like Western horror media, but I don't know. It's very creative. That's I guess all I'm saying.
Yeah, like that's what's cool about like I got work of thoughts here. That's what's really cool about like manga is that I guess comics, but like comics are usually more like American comics are usually more collaborative. Like a manga that's just it's usually like one person's crazy vision that they can just like explore like to the limits of their ability to draw. And which in Junji Ito's case is, you know, a preternatural ability. Like, he's so good at like coming up with a crazy idea and then like figuring out what it would look like. Oh, as a side thing, we can go back to the first thing. Stephen King has a story that's similar.
Really?
Well, at least like in terms of just like following a weird idea, is the novel Thinner. Like, there's this guy who like pisses off this like old magical woman who just says thinner at him, and then like no matter what he does, he just gets thinner and thinner and thinner, and he's gonna die of being too thin till he's gonna die of being too thin.
Damn, lucky him. No.
I guess I haven't read it, but that seems like it's just a straight concept. I mostly know about it from I think it was Patton Oswalt was talking about this novel one time. There's this scene where this is third hand, right? I'm not even sure if it was Patton Oswalt, but there's a scene where he's desperate to like not die, and he gets his hands on like a bag of oranges, and he's just sitting in his car like eating a bunch of oranges, and Stephen King like cuts away from him to like a child's perspective that just happens to look into that car, and that created a scarring memory for that child where he would like be afraid to sleep at night thinking about the orange man.
I don't understand what's so frightening about a man who likes his citrus.
At this point, he's like gaunt, I guess. He's like skeletal and really getting into those citruses.
Seems like cheesy bread would be I mean, like, you can eat all the oranges in the world. You're not going to put on any weight.
Yeah, it's not very efficient. It was what he had. I don't know.
Right.
Take it up with Steven.
Yeah,
I don't.
Come on, Steve.
Cost benefit. He'd be better off with something more calorie intensive.
I mean, you can get a pizza for $5 from the Little Caesars. You know,
shit ton of beer.
But Steven chose oranges.
Right.
But I guess there is it's a loose connection. But I guess there is like I think it's fun to start with that woman being traumatized by the man.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's so interesting how like the horror that she experiences and the horror that he's going through, like, intersect. Like, they affect each other, but they have no idea, like, about each other's plight at all. Like, I don't know, like, I think it's like I don't know, like the child, like, just being scared. Like, imagine if Stephen King, instead of writing Thinner, wrote The Orange Man, and it's about a little kid who's being haunted by a skinny guy that eats a lot of oranges. There's another angle of this story that's just like the woman that's being stalked by this crazy, creepy, old looking alien guy.
Right.
Yeah, I think the play of these frame of references is I agree. It's compelling to see play out.
Mm-hmm. It's at least has an opportunity to show things in scary ways, in ways you don't expect. Like, the fact that he looks scary is aided by the confusion that the woman feels when he just shows up at her room, like,
And all her own fears of
oh,
Grim Reaper showing up.
just come by. And that also helps too, just because if it was just some random woman, you'd get the idea of it being scared, but you're primed with also, like, what her experience of the world is too. It's just like a little bit to, like, make her feel like she's not just like a prop or, a receptacle for, like, the fear that he induces, but someone who's actively bringing fear to the situation.
Yeah, I guess it makes the reader feel more omniscient as well.
Yeah, which helps. I guess, like, because you have the doctor's perspective, and, like, the detached doctor who's just scientific about everything, then is, like, another aspect of it, because that perspective where you understand everything that's going on, like, the doctor understands everything that's going on, and he finds a way to bring those stories together, to bring the A plot and the B plot together.
In maybe an awful way, ?
Yeah, there's something, certainly not an ethical way.
She looks happy. Transformation. I thought I saw a smile in her metamorphosis. I'm not.
Yeah, I was gonna say I've got no problem with it.
I mean, affirmative consent is so important.
Right.
Yeah, that's important.
Right. Bitch just wants to sleep.
And yeah, forever. That's such an interesting thing. The idea that you could experience that your best bet of experiencing immortality is in one very long night.
I mean, would you all say yes to that, or?
Ooh. Do I get to be a cisgender woman in my dream?
Yeah, of course, it's your dream.
Then yeah.
Dreams sometimes have more control over you than you over them.
Well, hey, I asked the question and Corbin provided the answer. Based on the answer provided by Corbin, then yeah.
In this, with this information.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a lucid dreamer, you always have control.
Well,
lucid dreams I've only ever backfired on.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't really have those, Corbin.
I've never tried.
I guess with Infinity Time, you got time to master it. Potentially.
That's true.
I mean, I kind of like that idea. I don't necessarily have fear of death, but the idea of perceiving infinity sounds kind of neat.
Yeah, that is there is an allure.
I'll tell you, if you don't have a fear of death and you want to perceive infinity, you know what you might try. I was gonna say literal.
See you next time.
But it's Jenkum too.
I'm sorry, I'm an evangelist about this stuff.
Right.
So good, you guys.
Yeah, spreading the good word. The brown word.
I forgot the word for it, and Roberto kind of touched on it, but I mean, it does a really, really good job of showing the crisis of having this singular viewpoint from a singular perspective from a single point of time.
Wait, how do you mean?
But ultimately, there's shitty implications for.
Are you talking about solipsism?
Kind of, or just the concept of being a microcosm, like even if it's not solipsistic, like there's implications to you only ever being you at one point in time and one point of history ever.
Oh, okay.
When there's so much else going on.
Oh, so it's like you're talking about like the approach to like heightening like the different terrors, like the different horrors by like having like the different characters' perspectives be like so like exclusive to each other.
Yes, because I mean, not even this one too, but also in like again Itsu or Fashion Model, like this seems to be maybe one of the unifying concepts. I'm not sure.
Yeah, well, like one of the scary, like that, the gap between your experience and someone else's is like one of the scariest things for me. Like maybe like I'm gonna say it's kind of like I guess it's like the one of the problem of our times. Like I'm not saying it's like something about me, I guess, but like personally, I experience like social anxiety, and so like worrying about what's in someone else's brain, like does provide a lot of stress. And for horror, it's always great when you're not fully aware of like the intentions of the ghoulie or like whatever is in front.
Yeah.
Yeah, like certain like, or you go and encounter a wild animal or anything, like, do they want to eat me or can we be friends?
I mean, for example, even my fear of heights and going close to ledges, maybe that's rooted in ultimately this fear of I'm not sure what I'm gonna do once I get to that point.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you're even like a spectator to your own reality.
There's a interpersonality to it.
Like I think that kind of gets like what's so cool about making a horror story about dreams is that like when you go to bed, you're kind of relinquishing control to your subconscious, unconscious. Like this guy like can't not have long dreams. And it seems he doesn't have like the lucid dream power where he has to have the dream where he's what's it like you just guys like imagine you have a dream that you have to go to the bathroom for 6 months. Honestly, that sounds horrible. Like that is a horror story.
It's brilliant, all from a simple point too of what if you dreamed really long?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that really makes it because at least like with a dream you get the benefit of like I'll wake up soon. I know that dreams can feel like forever. You can hit snooze, you know, spend a week as a prisoner in a chain gang and then wake up and it's 5 minutes later. Like I know that's like part of what we know to be common in dreams, but the way he describes them being like longness being like a defining aspect of them. Like you are I hate that he used prisoner as an example before, but like you are like stuck in these situations. I'm reading this like we talk a lot about his art. I'm just like looking at this prose. Like this is actually pretty neat. Um I need you to understand this, Mr. Mukura, your long dreams are just an illusion. In reality they last only an instant. There's nothing to fear. You're only saying that because you've never dreamed as I have, Doctor. You've never felt how lonely they are, how filthy. How lonely and how terrifying to behold. Last night I was trapped as a soldier in the jungle, constantly on the run from the enemy. 10 long years, Doctor, so very long. The night before I was stuck cramming for tests, 9 years of endless exams and all-nighters. Oh, how about 8 years of searching for a toilet that doesn't exist? How do you think that feels? Like, that was the bit that really, like, grabbed me in terms of, like, how, like, the hold that dreams can have over you.
The prose is really, really effective on top of the art.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like that isn't like an effective description. Like I'm sure like this could be it would lose something by not by being a short story instead of a comic, but like it would work, especially because it's so reliant on just the concept. Like, the idea of it is strong enough.
Something would definitely be lost from seeing that transformation, that metamorphosis from person to dust to crystal.
Oh yeah. Plus like that final form that he takes before he's dust, like when he looks like I don't know, like a melted lollipop or
wonder if that's what will evolve to.
You might not like it, but this was the ideal.
This is our final form.
Yeah, we'll have transcended the need to exist, and we'll live only in the dream world. Okay, so I guess like one last thing before we like, does anyone have any other final thoughts on Long Dream?
If you were going to dream for 10 years, what would you want to dream about?
Pleasant evenings.
Perhaps a book club. I backed off the ledge. I almost did another Jenko.
Oh yeah. Well, good Jenkum will have you dreaming for 20 years a night. The good thing about Jenkum is that you can dream for 20 years, and in that dream, you can do more Jenkum. And then you can sort of continue down the staircase like that.
That's right. Yeah, if you thread it right, you have to do a lot of meditation. You have to have like a lot of mental resiliency.
It's Inception rules, essentially.
There's some astral projection into there.
Yeah, like you'll end up ascending.
Oh yeah.
That's where DMT monsters come from.
I have heard that.
What do you mean monsters? What?
I haven't seen any. I've just seen this in like YouTube thumbnails, but like how like backrooms became like a lore machine for people to be like level 5 of the backrooms, and you encounter this monster.
Yeah, I did know that. Yeah, yeah.
But like they've come up with like, here are the different DMT creatures you can encounter on your
The machine
elves.
elves.
I never the idea that you're like,
this is natural after SCP. Like this is just what was bound to happen.
yeah, just the Wikipediafication
Of everything, yeah, of reality.
of reality. Yeah. Yeah, I do think that I get where it's coming from. I appreciate people being excited about it, but I do think it does like impoverish a little bit the kind of like imagination world that you're playing in when you do that stuff.
That's funny.
Like one thing I want to say about these stories is that like, I guess like any story, and like I know like we do a lot of like the weird horror on this podcast, like the spaces for ambiguity, like I think like Long Dream goes so far because with all the stuff that it gets to explain being so potent by itself, but you're still left with like, okay, so in the end, like he dissolves into these crystals that can induce the same condition, but like why did they start for him in the first place?
Right.
Like, and
all the questions still aren't answered. Well, I think generally my experience with horror, and this is something you can sort of really get into the down and dirty with when you read some Lovecraft, is that you need to leave some of it unknown in order for there to still be some horror in it, Which is why, like, if you read some of the Lovecraft stories where he really plays into, like, his tendencies of, like, over-explaining, all of the horror gets beaten out of it by the end. Like, the unknown aspect that he will refer to as the, very bombastically, has essentially been beaten out of it by the very bombastic words that he uses. You don't really have that problem with Ito. I mean, there's still the mystery at the end of each story.
Yeah, it helps that they are kept short, and that they have to be like, because they're comics, they have like, you can do exposition, but they have to ultimately like exist in like in some kind of dramatized form.
Right.
In almost every occasion, it seems better to show and not tell.
Yeah, and there he has the benefit of being a drawer.
Absolutely.
I love like I saw Long Dream as just a great opportunity for him to like draw this different stuff. Like he does draw like this, like the way people draw like Lovecraft world when he's first describing nightmares. Just see these kind of like blown up microscopic shapes like eyes and teeth and stuff.
Right.
I love the one where he's like looking up at like machinery where there are these faces just like among the tubes.
That was really cool.
Geigery,
yeah. Maybe a bit of maybe a little bit of I Have No Mouth.
Yeah.
like if we find some horror that captures that cold, otherworldly, I don't know, mechanical aesthetic. I guess Mad God touched on it every once in a while. Yeah, but we should be on the lookout for this kind of sci-fi horror.
Right.
Maybe war stories. I don't think we've done a war story
I
yet.
think we were gonna do the Iron Man at some point, right?
That's right. Yeah, I'm still paying for Shudder. I gotta look out. But yeah, we we got some stuff.
Right.
We got some stuff cooking.
Yeah. In fact, maybe we should mention some of that stuff for future. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, So like, any last thoughts on Junji Ito, Long Dream, Fashion Model, Human Chair?
I think I'm good.
I'm always curious. Like, that's the thing. Like, his art is so strong, and he is a good storyteller. That I'm always curious how he, what he would do with any concept. Like what you're saying, like he looked at his tongue and thought it looked like a slug, and he built a story off of that. like I would only trust Junji Ito because even if it's as goofy as that potentially sounds, like that's still probably like a fun read.
Yeah. I bet he has a ton of sticky notes. Just walking around, comes up with an idea, and then sticks it on his dashboard or something.
Yeah, like he steps on some gum and he's like, "There's something to this." But for now, yeah, I think I think we did.
We're closing off from Ito here.
Yeah, so that was I hope you enjoyed this this Pleasant Evenings book club. Yeah, this Junji Ito triple whammy.
Hat trick.
Hat trick. Beautiful. That was what we said. We're in the stage of podcast right now where it feels a little bit like speaking into a void, but addressing the void. Any void dwellers out there, like what are your favorite Junji Ito stories? Any thoughts about what makes his stories as compelling as they are, or if they fall flat for you, in what ways? We'd love to hear it. Email us at eveningspleasant@gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook, on Twitter, Podbean. We're on YouTube. Yeah, we'd love to hear your thoughts.
Tell us how we fucked up.
Yes, please. Mostly that. That's what we'll be paying most attention to anyways.
That's human nature, I think.
Jujito's like, I got a bad review and it got me thinking. Join us next episode where we'll be discussing Robert Aikman. I'm hoping there's someone's doing a backflip over that. We're going to do a Robert Aikman story, Into the Wood, from his The Wine Dark Sea collection. Keep on the lookout. We're still planning on doing the House of Leaves episode. That should be coming around soon.
Be patient with us on that one.
Yeah. Yeah, we want to get this one right. Be on the lookout. I'm sure we'll be, Halloween's around the corner too. Just given our trajectory, and we're probably going to want to honor that. But whatever happens, join us in 2 weeks for Robert Aikman. This is Roberto speaking, joined by Hannah.
Hey, signing off.
And Corbin.
Goodbye. Have a pleasant evening. Thanks for listening.
Pleasant evening. All right, that's episode.